Demonstrations took place across all 50 states and globally on Saturday against President Donald Trump and Elon Musk. The rallies were organized by a pro-democracy movement in response to what they call a hostile takeover, an attack on American rights and freedoms. So is this just the beginning of a broader resistance movement? Utah State Senator Nate Bluin joins me now. What really stood out to us is that states even like Utah, which Donald Trump won by more than 20 points in the election in November, also saw a significant turnout.
Great to be on here. It was an exciting weekend. I think we saw millions of people come together across the country, and certainly in Utah, a state that is known for conservative politics, to drive up to Capitol Hill, where I go to work 45 days out of the year during session and have a hard time finding parking, even getting up to the Capitol because of how many people were making their way up there. It was really spectacular. I've never seen anything like it in Utah. And added to the fact that it was the LDS General Conference. So we had thousands of people in downtown Salt Lake, and I think there were more than a few of them who made their way up from downtown at the conference to the Capitol, which is an exciting thing to know. Yeah, I think that's a really important point is, as you mentioned, these protests have been planned for, I think, a couple of weeks. And obviously this Liberation Day thing just happened late last week. People are feeling this acutely, hitting their wallets as we speak. I've listened into the last segment and just heard about all of the potential impacts we're going to see over the next few months. And we heard all sorts of concerns from economic concerns, obviously, but also in a state like Utah, where we have a Republican supermajority in the legislature. People are worried about their health care. They're worried about Social Security. They're worried about our public lands here in a state like Utah and making sure that we have adequate opportunities for recreation and preserving really pristine natural lands that make so much of the American West just an incredible place to live. So all sorts of things. When you hear hands off, I think hands off applies to all of those things I just walked through. Of course, we saw all these ridiculous statements about protesters being bussed in and that sort of thing. This is Utah. I don't know where you'd bus people in from. Everyone lives within, a few miles of the Capitol in a state like this. We're one of the most urban states in the country as far as the Wasatch Front having the major part of the population. So I think people were coming from all across the Wasatch Front. We saw protests all across the state, actually. There were, in some of our smaller cities outside of Salt Lake County, there were, I think, half dozen or so other protests that actually, achieved more numbers than I think people would have expected. So on top of the, 10,000 or so maybe at the Utah Capitol, thousands more across the state. And they came from all over the place, Republicans, Democrats, nonpartisan folks, which dominate the scene here in Utah. I don't think it was one political ideology or another. It was just people who were fed up and